what about then, because, okay, you've got some kind of parallel between Egyptian mythology and Mothman. What about other creatures like right here in West Virginia, the Flatwoods Monster? So you've got other things that I don't think that one actually flew, did it?
Say that?
It didn't fly and have wings, did it?
Flatwoods Monster is kind of an anomaly because it only happened really within a short time period, like in a week. I think they maybe saw it twice, very limited. The Flatwoods Monster is not the same as the Braxton County Monster. That's a real big confusion that's occurred. And John Keel's very clear about it, that the Flatwoods Monster was just kind of a robotic thing. And there were scrape marks on the ground, and there was an oily smell, and military intelligence was there that night in the bushes watching the whole thing. So it really sounds like a synthetic event. The Braxton County Monster, on the other hand, is a long series of Bigfoot sightings in West Virginia, really, in Braxton County. So, and I would label those as natural.
And similar with the Jersey Devil, for example, just up the coast, right?
The Jersey Devil, I spoke to a Jersey Devil witness this summer. He lived there for 25 years. And it sounded exactly like the Mothman. UFOs, lights in the lights coming in the house, nearby Army base. Like, I'll just mention Alistair Crowley, because Alan Greenfield isn't here today. He was going to talk about Crowley. But with Crowley, you have kind of both. You have a military intelligence guy, which he was, trying to cause occult events through ritual. So, do you call that natural or do you call that synthetic? It's kind of both. Because he really did seem to trigger some UFO sightings. And a lot of people are attributing the UFO phenomenon now to Aleister Crowley.
But can't you convince people that they're seeing something that they're not really seeing? I mean, you study hypnosis, and what if, you know, I've talked with Uri Geller and I've talked with people whose job it is to convince you that you're seeing something that you're not seeing. So could that be some kind of, maybe one of many events is real and then the rest is just kind of propaganda after that? A series of sightings such as with Mothman or with Jersey Devil?
Well, in this book, shameless plug, I've got some John Keel lectures in here transcribed. Really good, because most people haven't heard them. And he describes, like between 1947 and 1952, that the Army was really, really, really studying people who had seen paranormal phenomena. And they were trying to figure out what was, because this is a natural phenomenon that occurs. You can be, you know, it just does. People go into the woods, they go into trance, they see things that happen. But then they figured out, well, how does that happen? So that they could go and in turn induce it. That's kind of what's happened. So anything beyond 1952, because basically that's when Keel says they figured it out. After that, they were just, any UFO sightings that came in, they would just ignore them. So they figured out what they wanted to know, and it may have had to do with hypnosis. Certainly by 1960, they were hypnotizing people, some against their will, even children. And this is in the literature, you know, impaled, mind control things. And so it gets really messy after that. But there's both, you know. There's both. It just can occur in the woods, and it can also occur by someone using either mass media or direct contact with a person hypnotizing them. Mass media can do some of it, and it actually does do some of it, just to sort of prepare people and keep us all sort of in a certain, I guess, consumer mindset.
And when, I want to ask again, when you go out to the TNT area, what do you feel? And I ask that because I've been out there. And when I go out there, I feel like it's a scary place. I feel like it's more of a party place than a place to find you know, a creature. But I just feel it's just scary. I don't get you know, any energy off of it like one would say Sedona, Arizona, or something like that. So what do you feel as a spiritual person when you go to TNT?
I didn't feel anything either.
So someone have a question out there, Doug?
Yep.
You mentioned the Lester Crowley. I was wondering, for years I've been hearing that Crowley was drawing pictures of like what we today call gray aliens, like way back at the beginning of the 1900s before anybody ever thought of that. Is that true? Because I haven't been able to find out for certain. I mean, I've seen stuff on the internet where they're like, oh, Crowley drew this gray alien. I never could tell for certain.
Well, I was listening to Greenfield's interview with Adam Gorightly before I left to come here, and right when they got to the part where Gorightly asked him that very question, Greenfield should know because he's the expert. I got interrupted. I've got a 4-year-old, and I didn't catch what he said. But Greenfield and myself, we're going to be on Gorightly's show next week, talking about all this stuff. So I'll ask him again and try to figure it out. It's on blogspot.com. Is that the name of it? It's the same one that Donnie Sturgeon has his Mothman podcast on, that same system. And it's called Untamed Dimensions, is the name of the show. So if you do a search on that, you'll get it.
Doug, there's a gentleman behind you that would like to ask a question, it looks like.
It seems that we have a lot of these types of creatures in ancient culture. You know, it goes back to like the sorcerer cave painting in France. You know, it's like a shapeshifter. And it's got a very bird face, even the owl eyes. And then like the Garuda in Buddhism. And there just seems to be a lot of these sorts of things that we think they're stories. And then these things happen now. You know, something happens and people start seeing these things. And we act like we're surprised, like we've never heard of anything like this before. Or no, I don't believe you because this is the modern world, these things don't happen. But obviously people have been describing these things for a long time, especially with the way that we are seeing them. You know, they're humanoid type figures, but with very bird characteristics, or like the big feet, or Bigfoots, or whatever that is. You know, they're very human, but also very animal. And it's something that we've been depicting in our stories and our artwork since the beginning of our depiction. So why do you think there's a differentiation there? Why do we get confused now and not remember that these things have been part of who we are forever, and they're still just as real as they used to be?
I think it's the media. They love to be very simplistic in the way they describe things, and I mean, the churches aren't really that interested in people getting independent thoughts about it either. They want it framed, each one wants it framed kind of in their way, which is okay, because that's one way of getting access to it. I had some other thought, and then I lost it. I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Give me some volume.
Do we have a universal consciousness?
Absolutely.
And is there stuff stored up in there? Information. Like, is that how I know? Is that how a young man and a young woman, fall in love, that they want to have kids? It's just like, this natural thing. There's this urge, this whatever, that it's born in you to do these different things. And when is that stored in this universal consciousness?
I think so.
Is there fire, things like that stored in the universal consciousness? Like the, fight or flight mechanism is what we call it.
Yeah.
Well, what about, like, are we all these different tribes of people drawing from a universal, I can't even say the word, consciousness folklore? Like, is that stored up there? And they go, oh, it's bird-like creatures, they draw a bird. But their bird looks slightly different than this other bird, but in essence, they're bird-like creatures. Okay,
and
how do we get to it? How do we find out what the universal consciousness says about the Mothman?
well, first of all, we're using it all the time. You know, every ray of sun has, every particle of light, every photon has intelligence, and they've proven this in the lab. It knows that you're watching it. But I think in regards to like what is Mothman saying, if it's the Garuda, assuming it's the Garuda, it's always fighting crime. So anytime a child is harmed, especially if it's a big deal, like a bunch of people, there's going to be psychic fallout. And the message of why or who did it or whatever is going to come back in some other way to other people. Just trying to balance the scale. Did somebody say they couldn't hear?